The first one is quantitative research. Definition of quantitative research. Quantitative research is a structured way of collecting and analyzing data obtained from different sources. Quantitative research, the first one I would like to tell you about this research design, population sample and sampling, problem structure. The first one is research design. Research design, or design in the narrow sense, is interpreted as the process of collecting and analyzing research data. Kind of research design. In general, research designs are grouped into two, namely 1. Untreated research design or descriptive group, 2. Treatment research design or experimental group. Next is research plan framework. The first one, titled research. 2. Formulation of the problem. 3. The purpose and benefits of research. 4. Library review. 5. Hypothesis. 6. Population and sample or participant research subject. 7. Research variable or concept boundary or conceptual framework. 8. Method of collecting data. 9. Data analysis method. And the last is report writing. The next one is population, sample, and sampling. Population. Population is a set of elements becomes the object of research. The population in research can be interpreted as a whole unit of analysis. The unit of analysis is the unit that will be examined or analyzed. The next is population based on type. The first one, limited population of defining, having clear data sources with quantitative limitation so that they can be calculated. Example, number 2 million inhabitants of the Padang city. Number 2 is infinite population. The data source cannot be determined so that the relative cannot be expressed in the form of a month. The example, examine tides during full moon. Next is population based on character. The first one is homogeneous population. Data sources whose elements have the same nature and do not need the question quantitatively. Second, heterogeneous population. Sources of data whose elements have different properties or circumstances so that boundaries need to be determined qualitatively and quantitatively. Example. The research sample is portion of this population taken as a data source and can represent the entire population. Benefit of using samples. The first one is facilities research. Second, research is more efficient, more sure, and careful in collecting data, and the last is more efficient research. Requirement of good sample. The first one is accuracy of determination. The level of bias in the sample, in other words, the fewer errors in the sample, the more accurate the sample may be. 2 is has a level of precision estimation. Precision refers to the problem as close as our estimation to the characteristic of the population. Next is determine the amount of the sample. The first one, the degree of homogeneity of a population is completely heterogeneous. 2. The desired precision from research. 3. Analysis plan. 4. Power, cost, and time. 5. Population size. And then, the larger of the sample will be higher the level of precision obtained. And last is sampling. Sampling or sampling techniques is a sampling method that is representative of the population. To find samples in the study, there are various sampling techniques, namely, the first one is probability sampling, and the second one is non-probability sampling. Probability sampling is a sampling technique that provides equal space for each element or member or the population to be chosen as members of the sample. And next is type of probability sampling. There is 4. The first one is simple random sampling, and 2. Proportionate standard random sampling, 3. Sampling area, 4. Random sampling cluster, and then non-probability sampling. Non-probability sampling is a sampling technique that do not provide equal properties or opportunities for each element or member of the population to be selected as a sample. Type of non-probability sampling there is four. The first one is qualitative sampling, 2 incidental sampling, 3 purposive sampling, 4 snowball sampling. Then the last topic is research problem. Research problem is the effort of the way someone does to get data so that the data is able to overcome the ignorance of a problem and answer all questions that arise in the problem. Next is type of problems. There is 3: descriptive problems, comparative problems, and associative problems. The first one is descriptive problems. Problems that are related to independent variables, either only one variable or more. Number 2 is comparative problem, are formulation of research problems that compare the existence of one or more variables in different samples. And the last is associative problems. Associative problems are the formulation of research problems in the nature of the relationship between 2 or more variables. And first one is make a variable relationship. Formulation of problem must clearly show the variables that will be carried out research. Research must also explain what is to be done with variables. Number 2 is expressed clearly and unambiguously in the form of the research question, hence will be answered, so that it must be formulated into question sentence. The feeling of wanting to know is marked by the submission of questions. And number 3 is allows data collection to answer question. Problem must be empirically tested. This implies the implication that the variables to be tested by this relationship must allow data collection. Quantitative research requires open conclusion to be verified. 4. No moral or ethical position instead. Scientific question must be natural. Moral or ethical issues related to good or bad judgment. Science must be value-free and neutral so that it is not biased. Quantitative research to pursue fame that is positive, free of value, measurable, observed, and can be praised. And next is source of problems. There is 5. The first one, observation, the educational theory, library, social problem, and then the last one is personal experience. The next discussion is qualitative research. Qualitative research is a descriptive research method uses analysis, approach data, uses existing theories as supporters, and produce theories. Qualitative research paradigm. The definition. Qualitative research paradigm is a humanistic research where humans in the study are placed as the main subject in a social event with a concept that guides us about how our thinking patterns in conducting research. Next is type of qualitative research paradigm. The first one is post-positivism. Post-positivism paradigm is born as a paradigm that wants to modify weaknesses found in the positivism paradigm. And number 2 is constructivism. This paradigm views that reality is the result of construction or formation from humans themselves. That reality is dual, can be formed and is a whole. And 3 is critical theory. Critical theory views that reality is closely related to observers that cannot be separated from each other, and the value exposed by the observer also influence the facts of this reality. And next is conclusion, analysis, and taking in qualitative research. 1 is analytical induction. Analytical induction is a data analysis and a processing approach that groups various data into concepts and certain categories. And 2, extrapolation. Extrapolation is a way of analysis and conclusion by conducting simultaneous during the process of analytical induction. And then, characteristic of qualitative research. The first one is differences in qualitative and qualitative research. In the quantitative research, the preference for the accuracy of the hypothesis states at the beginning. And then, data is reduced to numerical score. And 3, assesses validity through various procedures depending on the statistical index. But in the qualitative research, the preference for hypotheses that appear during the study. Definition of preference in the context of the progress of the study. And then preference by assuming that evidence reliability is appropriate. And next is characteristic of qualitative research. The first one is using natural environment as a data source. Second is descriptive analytical properties. 3, pressure on the process is not the result. 4, inductive. 5, prioritizing meaning. And then implementation research. The preparation steps. Preliminary work that discusses things. The first one, make contact with the gatekeeper, make an art agreement with the respondent, building and maintaining trust, and the last one is discuss and use information. Data and collecting recording. Step preparation. Before a researcher falls into the setting for collecting data, he needs to make adequate preparation so that he does not face significant difficulties. Data collection. In qualitative research, the data is in the form of a description of information about the phenomenon being studied, although it is permissible to use data in the form of numbers. The numbers are very minimal. And next is data recording. The data that has been obtained through the 3 techniques above appear in the form of field notes, which are the raw data of the study. Each field note contains at least 2 parts, namely the description section and the reflection section. Data analysis. The ethnographic research data analysis technique of the spread-array model consists of 4 steps of analyzing. The first one, domestic analyzing. Second one, taxonomic analyzing. And number 3, component analyzing. And the last is analyzing of the themes. And the last is data validity. Triangulation is a way to get truly valid by using a dual method approach. Triangulation is a technique for checking the validity of data by utilizing something else outside the data itself for the purposes of the checking or as a comparison to the data. Qualitative research really requires a triangulation technique, which combines a number of data, methods, theories, and scientific discipline in a study. And that's all my explanation about qualitative and quantitative research. Thank you very much for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.